Okay, so you don't have to write this down, but I'm going to go ahead and just do a division problem because I know some of you are division averse. So we want to divide 35 into 2003 or 203. Where do we start? So where do we start? What do we start with? You know what, I'm going to change that to 403. We're going to change it to 35 into 403. Where do I start? That's right. So 35 would go into 40. How many times? Once. So we bring the 35 here, and then what do we do next? Subtract, and we get.
No, she just made it.
I just made this problem up. 5, and then what do we do next?
Bring down the 3.
Bring down the 3, and then we say 35 goes into 53 once, and then bring down the 35 and subtract. So this is going to be 18. And so we can write our answer as 11, remainder 18, or we could write it as 11 and 18 over what number?
35.
35, that's right. So that's less often what we did. That's less often what we did. But for what we're doing today, that's what we're going to do. We're going to use that fraction like that. Okay, so we are dividing polynomials. Apologize in advance.
Oh my gosh.
Not on. You gotta listen to this today. It's a little hard, a little tough. So what goes on the inside? What goes on the outside? Yes, 10x squared goes in here. And the x minus 8 goes outside. Okay, do you follow that? Okay, so what we want to do on this one, just the numbers are a little more straightforward because we can just take 35 into 40. So what we want to do on this one is we're only going to look at the x and we're only going to look at the 10x squared. We're going to ignore that 8 temporarily and ignore what's next to it temporarily. What do we multiply x by to get 10x squared? 10x. Questions on that? Questions on where we got the 10x? So once again, we only look at this term, the x, and the 10x squared. What do we multiply x by to get 10x squared? And that would be 10x. So where it's different than this over here, it's really easy for me to take a 1 times 35, or even if it was a 2 times 35, it's real easy for me to do that because that number is all together. So now what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to take the 10x and multiply it by the x minus 8 on the side. What do I do when I take 10x times x minus 8? How do I simplify that? Distribute. So I get 10x squared and negative 80x. And so that's what I'm going to write over here. 10x squared minus 80x. So I am subtracting, right? Does that make sense how I'm subtracting? Just like regular division. But I'm subtracting all of it. So I'm putting parentheses around it because I need to subtract all of it. Since I'm subtracting all of it, I need to distribute that negative. So when I distribute the negative, this is negative 10x squared. And then what does the negative 80x become? Less. So what happens to these two when I add them? They cancel. And then I have negative 84x plus 80x, which gives us negative 4x. Questions? A lot of parts, a lot of moving parts here on this. Happy to answer any questions. Okay, so now we're going to do what with the 37?
Bring it down.
Bring it down, that's right. Just like we brought this 3 down over here, we're going to bring the 37 down. So once again, we're only going to look at what do I multiply x by to get negative 4x? Negative 4. Questions on how we got the negative 4? Okay, so over here on the side, or if you want to do this in your head, that's fine. Negative 4 times x minus 8. Negative 4x plus what? 32. So I'm going to write the negative 4x plus 32 here. And then I'm going to subtract. This is where most of the mistakes are made with the subtraction. So it's okay if you don't want to distribute, but don't forget to distribute. Let's see, blue. So this negative here becomes positive, and then this one becomes a negative. Does that make sense, what I did there? So I had a negative 4x minus plus 32, and it became positive 4x minus 32 because I'm subtracting. So what happens to the negative 4x and the 4x? They cancel, don't they? So these cancel, and then we take 37 minus 32, which is 5. And then that is our remainder. So I'm going to write it as plus 5 over the divisor, x minus 8.
God.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so put the k plus 5 on the outside. 8k to the third, 36k squared, minus 11k plus 52. Hey, anybody know what to do first?
8k.
8k.
8k on the top.
So is it going to be an 8k or 8k squared? 8k squared, because I need to get to 8k to the third from the k. Does that make sense? So I put it up above the k squared. It's really not important where you put it. It's not like when you have a number and you have to line them up. It's not the same. Doesn't matter where you put it. So now on the side, we take that 8k squared and we multiply it by the k plus 5. And we get 8k cubed plus 40k squared. So I bring that over here, 8k to the third plus 40k squared. And I do what next? Add, subtract. Subtract, just like regular division, I'm going to subtract. So again, this is where most of the mistakes are made. So I like to, when I'm showing it, distribute it. So this positive 8k squared becomes negative, and this positive becomes negative. So the 8k to the third minus 8k to the third, what happens there? They cancel? And then what do I get here? Negative 4k squared. What next? Bring down the next term over, which is the negative 11k. And then, Frankie, what would I multiply k by to get negative 4k squared? What do you multiply this by to get this? Negative 4k squared. So it's already k squared, and we've got a k. So is it k squared that we want to multiply it by? Just k. So negative 4k. So on the side, we're going to take a negative 4k times k plus 5. And we get negative 4k squared minus 20k. I'm subtracting all of it, so I'm going to distribute a negative. So this is positive, and this is positive when I distribute my negative. Does that make sense there? Again, that's where most of the mistakes happen. So now adding the like terms there. Actually, what do we get when we add our like terms? That's right. These, I'm going to change it back to red. These cancel, and this gives us 9k, and then we bring down the 52. So, on an E, what do I multiply k by to get 9k? 9. So plus 9. And so then I want to take 9 times k plus 5, and if you're doing this in your head, that's fine. 9k plus 45. I subtract it. And then, what do I get when I add those together? So this is positive 52 and a negative 45. 7. I know it's hard because I've got that one crossed out, so it's hard to see what that is. And then 9k and minus 9k cancel, right? Does that make sense, David? Did you have a question on something? Okay. So we want to bring the 7 up, and we write plus 7 over our divisor, which is k plus 5. Okay, next one. Okay. Oh, hi. We are doing long division polynomials. They are loving today.
No.
Okay, so what does this mean here? What's a little different? What does it mean? It's just another way of showing division, isn't it? So what goes on the outside? What goes on the inside? 2m minus 8. 16m to the third minus 76m squared plus 42m plus 29. Questions on that? Okay, so my first step, I want to take a look at what do I multiply 2m by to get 16m to the third? Tiana, what would I multiply 2m by to get 16m to the third? 8m squared. Is that what you said? Yeah. So on the side, we're going to take 8m squared and multiply it by the 2m minus 8. Omar, what do I get when I multiply 8m squared times 2m minus 8? 16m what? Minus 60, just 64? M squared, good. And so now we want to subtract all of it. So we're going to distribute that negative. So this becomes negative here, and this one becomes positive. So now when we add those together, Kira, what do I get when I add those together?
60.
Yep.
12.
Positive or negative?
Negative.
Good. So negative 12n squared, what do I do next? Anybody?
Bring the 42.
Good. Bring down the 42m. So now I want to figure out what do I multiply 2m by to get a negative 12m squared? Jack, what do I multiply 2m by to get negative 12m squared?
6 and 6.
Positive or negative?
6 more.
Okay, and just negative 6, or are there any m's?
Negative 6.
Good. I know a lot of parts to it, huh? So on the side, you can take your negative 6m and multiply it by the 2m minus 8. And we get negative 12m squared plus 48m. And then we want to subtract them. So we distribute that negative. And then what do I get when I add those? Kylie, what do I get when I add these?
9.
Negative 6m, that's right. And then what do I do next? Bring down the 29. And then, Ira, what do I multiply 2m by to get negative 6m? Good. So negative 3 times 2m minus 8. We're going to distribute. Negative 6m plus 24. We want to distribute the negative. This becomes negative, and they add 2. 29 minus 24 is 5, and so we write our answer as plus 5 over
2m minus 8.
2m minus 8. And that's our answer. Okay, last one. What's different on this last one? Yeah, that's right. So Shireen, notice that there's no R term. So just be careful. It'll be a little tricky when we have that missing term there. So we have an R plus 6 divided into 5R to the third plus 29R squared plus 40. So start out the same. What is it that we multiply R by to get 5R to the third? Allie. What do we multiply this by to get that? Good. So on the side, 5R squared times R plus 6, 5R to the third plus 30r squared. So where we are going to subtract those, distribute the negative, negative here. So this would add up to a negative r squared, and then plus a 40. So notice there's no r there. So that's where we're going to get into something that's going to be a little bit different. So what do we multiply r by to get negative r squared? Negative r. So we have negative r times r plus 6. Negative r squared minus 6r. So pay attention to this part here. So now we're going to distribute that negative, positive, and positive. So are these two here, are the 40 and the 6r like terms? No. So what I'm going to do is these are canceling, and then I'm going to bring down my 6r and then plus 40. So I just put it in standard form. I put the 6r first and then the 40 second. Does that make sense? And so now we say, what do I multiply r by to get 6r? 6. So plus 6. So 6 times r plus 6. 6r plus 36. We subtract it. We distribute our negative. And then this would give us 4. And so we write that as plus 4 divided by r plus 6.
Whoa.
Yeah. Questions on that?